My goals per se, I have one major goal, and at this age, it's pretty much the same across the board. It's staying healthy enough to see another day. My name is Edith. I am 78 years old. I live in Tampa, Florida. I've been retired for 8 years. My company did not offer a 401k. Well, they offered, but they did not offer a 401k to me specifically because I turned 65, and at 65, the cutoff for qualifying to become part of the 401k program offered by my company, 62. So I did not qualify because I was already past 62 years old. I started working with this particular company when I was already in my late 50s. While I was employed, the medical insurance I had was sufficient for my needs at the time. I did not have any major medical health issues to speak of. My medical needs while I was working, while I was actively employed, were probably the same basic, I would say. No, my issues at my health issues at the time while I was employed were pretty standard, pretty average. I was not very concerned about my medical needs at retirement. My greatest concern was because we as Americans and actively employed taxpayers, we pay into the Medicare program, and it is an almost automatic eligibility if you have enough work time put in. In other words, 10 years or more of paying into the system. So I was under the impression Medicare would take care of my medical needs. And as I said, at the time while I was working, before I retired, I didn't have any medical issues to consider. So, routine medical care, I thought, okay, well, Medicare will take care of that. I live now, I moved out of where I was living in another county in Florida to Tampa. I live now in what is a senior community or a senior residence, if you will, um, apartment buildings for seniors. And the rental here for me, for what I qualify for, is what they call tax credit. The developers, the owners, get a tax credit as an incentive to lower the rent from market value a certain percentage so I can afford to live here on my retirement income. Medical needs changed after retirement, not specifically because I retired or because I wasn't working. It was illnesses that I'd had prior that were under control. As I got older, and that became affecting, having major effect on cardiovascular and other areas. And then it became almost a life saving type of medical care that I needed. I have systemic lupus, yes. Systemic lupus is an autoimmune disease that, where, to put it very simply, where the antibodies that our body typically generates, when we have illnesses they need to fight back, be it bacteria or viruses or what have you, uh, they attack the healthy cells in our body. So the body attacking itself. First, my mom, and she passed from complications. She passed very young. Then my brother, who also passed not too long ago. And as I said, for me, the illness while I was working and as I was in my younger years and so on, I was diagnosed in 1972. I had treatments then, whatever treatments were available, and the illness goes into remission. And because I was otherwise healthy and active, and the illness stayed under remission for a while. In the 90s, the illness started coming back, and I ended up um, being disabled for a while until the disease was under control. And then I was able to go back to work. Yep. The treatment that I've been receiving now for lupus, unfortunately, is not a treatment that they can give me. Lupus is treated primarily with steroids, like corticosteroid, prednisone, and those are the two major um, to stop the overproduction of antibodies by our immune system. But because, and this is like, this sounds almost contrary, is when I was diagnosed and had to have the open heart surgery for the cardiovascular issues, that's when they realized that the lupus was, as I always like to say, running rampant. In other words, it had activated it was in remission for many years, activated and to a level that was pretty much attacking just about every organ, internal organ, beginning with the heart at that point. And because the medications that I have to take to maintain my heart, my cardiovascular balance, the steroids interfere with those medications. So they have to give the medical professionals that I deal with, I have several specialists, um, have to prioritize the treatments. For example, I'm being treated for cardiovascular issues, including blood pressure and the like, high blood pressure. If I get steroids within hours of the first dose, my blood pressure will spike. And that, of course, puts me in danger of a stroke or a heart attack and in severe risk. So they have to balance the treatments I get for the cardiovascular, for the macular edema, for my eyes, what is going on now. My kidneys are being affected, my liver, and so on. The medical issues I'm being treated for now, um, starting as I mentioned earlier with the cardiovascular, that is the heart, the high blood pressure, the AFib, arterial fibrillation. And I also have GI issues, the gastroparesis. For my kidneys, kidney failure, stage 3. And now they're recently looking at the liver for fatty liver issues. My liver is not functioning as it should, or even at the level where most of us seniors would have. And then, of course, there's the osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, for example. I now cannot fully close my hand anymore. Um, and, that's a condition that is pretty much permanent at this point. It will only be getting worse. My joints. My goals per se. I have one major goal, and at this age, it's pretty much the same across the board. It's staying healthy enough to see another day and taking it day by day. A good example, not too long ago, I would have no problems, no issues, no considerations being invited to a vacation 6 months from now. Now, even an invitation for an event that's happening a week from now gives me thought. I have to pause. Can I make it? Will I be healthy enough to go? Can I make the commitment to be there? Those are the kinds of questions that I have to ask myself when it comes to anything other than my daily routines. So my goal ultimately is really not changing in the past several years, but more in the last year or so, especially, where okay, well, oh, I have a day with no appointments. That is wonderful. My decision on which medication I use for or I start getting for my eyes is purely financial. The retinal injection for my eye for the macular edema. I still haven't committed to using the more expensive but supposedly more effective medication because I don't know what I'll be able to afford. I don't know what that bottom number is going to be. I don't know yet. There's no question that I want the more effective medication. However, the insurance company, as insurance companies across the board, from what I understand, especially those who are what is known as Medicare Advantage plans, which means they're approved by Medicare to manage the Medicare authorized Medicare insurance. The way I feel about my insurance company not covering or not approving or approving at a cost that is way too high for me, which means I have to give up maybe food altogether or my electric, not pay my electric bill. It makes me feel cheated. It makes me feel hurt because I worked all my life in this country and I've paid my taxes. My family has paid their taxes. Family members who have given their lives to the armed forces. All of this. And here I am feeling like I'm living in a third world country almost, because at times these things are available to me, but they are not affordable to me. What keeps me up at night is what appointment do I have tomorrow? Honestly, it's what my day will look like tomorrow. What do I have to do for myself tomorrow? And in my prayers, that's what I say. Give me the strength to do the things I need to do to take care of myself. And that is primarily the medical situation. I'm in bed at night. Tomorrow, I have to see this particular specialist. I have to remember to tell him, oh yeah, this is what's been happening since I last saw you. And I feel no better. Or this is getting worse. And what am I going to do? And oh, I need a refill for this prescription or the other. Is there something I can get that's maybe cheaper than what you're prescribing that may give me the same result? I do not now and have ever considered doctors as unapproachable, as godlike figures. My word is sacred. And so I have no problems whatsoever asking the questions to my doctors, the same as I would to anyone else. This is what you have to take. The doctor is writing a prescription. What is it? Why are you asking me to take it? What are the possible side effects? Are you considering the fact that I'm taking these other 10 medications? How are they going to work together? And is this really necessary? Will this make enough of a difference? Is it worth the risk of my taking it with these other medications or with these other medical issues that I have? How will it affect my blood pressure? That's always a biggie, and it's almost the number one question that comes out when I'm getting a new prescription, because that's one of the most immediate effects that any prescription will have. The satisfaction that I get out of asking the questions about the prescriptions, be it a prescription, a procedure, or if a doctor says you need to stay in bed for the next 5 days, I don't say, okay, doctor, I'll stay in bed for the next 5 days and walk out of the office. Oh, heck no. No, it's why. Why are you prescribing X, Y, or Z? Oh, because this. And most medical professionals, while their face is on a computer screen and rarely looking at the patient these days, there's no more of the touchy feely thing that doctors used to do. They will actually turn away from that computer screen and actually look at me and have a conversation. These conversations with my doctors have at times come to the point where the doctor, him or herself, will say, well, I I didn't take into consideration X, Y, or Z. Because they're looking on a computer screen, they're looking at records that may or may not be up to date. He's putting in his notes into my chart, and the expectation is that the next doctor I see will see his notes and consider his notes. Unfortunately, they don't look back at the history. So if this doctor is looking at the doctor that I just saw, that's pretty much all they'll be considering. Unless it's a doctor like my cardiologist who's been seeing me for the last 4 or 5 years and is very familiar with my history. But in most cases, they see and they focus on the most recent entry into that chart by whomever it is that's reporting it, being it a lab, another doctor. So they don't scroll and go into what happened a year ago or 2 years ago that may affect the decision they're making today. The procedures that I have kind of invented for myself and the tools that I use, I keep a record of my prescription medicines, change them accordingly, even if it's just the dosage, the same prescription, but more, you know, from 200 milligrams, maybe now it's 400, or from 200, it went down to 100. I immediately, as soon as I get home, or now I keep it on my phone as well, change it. I make note to make sure that I put it in my journal. I call it my medical journal, my prescription or medicine journal that I keep on a daily basis. And that helps me stay on track. And it's also good because if I have a bad reaction, I can just look. What was the last pill I took? Did I mix it with something else that I shouldn't have? Can have an effect on how your system works with that medication. That leads me to the research and the questions that you need to ask. Keeping track of my medical situation, my medical records, my medical history, my prescriptions, my appointments, failed or otherwise, and my insurance, that's become a full time job as a retiree. If I were a 65-year-old who were talking to my neighbor who may be 65 years old, recently retired, limited income, and is facing decisions about their medical care, their medical insurance, is research, ask questions. You must not be afraid to ask questions. You are not going to look stupid because I know that's a feeling. Most of us seniors, that because the younger generation looks at us as we're all senile and dopey, we don't know what we're saying. Do not be afraid to ask the question, especially of your medical professionals, including your pharmacists.
What are you telling your 30-year-old self as advice?
I would tell my 30-year-old self to be vigilant, to know what you need to do to take care of yourself. And as far as your finances, take advantage of every opportunity you have to save for the future. Just be aware of what's coming, and pray that you live long enough to be able to use those benefits that you worked so hard for.